This YouTube video is loosely based on facts, so take some of this information in the video with a grain of salt. This is the ocean millions of years ago when the Mosasaurus existed. The Mosasaurus is actually not a dinosaur. It was an aquatic reptile, which are kind of like swimming dinosaurs, but also are not. As we can see, the Mosasaurus is battling against some great white sharks for territory. It seems like the Mosasaurus is losing, probably because there is strength in numbers. The Mosasaurus knows it can't win, so begins to run away, but it can't escape as the sharks have already pushed it down, nearly killing it. It acted dead, which made the sharks swim away. After this, it decided to go hunting for some nice salmon, about 6 salmon. It immediately lunged at them, taking them apart. The salmon tried to fight back, but, well, they're salmon. They can't really do that much. So most of the salmon got ripped apart by the powerful Mosasaurus. They could barely do anything. And they were picked off one by one, making a quick and easy meal. Well, relatively easy for the Mosasaurus. But unfortunately, it met 2 of the sharks that tried to kill it earlier. And enraged, it went right after them, biting a hold of its head, biting one of the sharks and beginning to tear it to shreds. It then easily was but the battle was incredible. The battle was incredibly tough. The sharks attempted to pin it down, but it fought back. Eventually, one of the sharks was overpowered, but by getting their fin torn off, now they just needed to deal with one more shark. But the shark grabbed onto its neck and began to pull him down. Eventually, it beated the Mosasaurus, and the Mosasaurus, being nearly dead, needed to rest at the bottom of the ocean, needed to rest at one of the sea floors. The Mosasaurus was incredibly angry that this happened. So it decided to go after some piranhas. Even though piranhas do not live in salt lakes, they still didn't really exist, but I told you that this is relatively inaccurate. It began to become torn apart by the piranhas, not being able to really do that much. Well, would you like it if 20 ginormous flies were attacking you with vicious sharp teeth? Yeah, so that would make some sense. But after that defeat, he accidentally encountered the attention of a colossal squid. The colossal squid immediately Okay, I just accidentally unplugged my mic, but now let's continue. The colossal squid began to wrap its tentacles around the Mosasaurus and attempted to strangle it. But the Mosasaurus, in return, began to bite off some of its tentacles and almost tore apart one of the feeder tentacles. But the powerful suction cups and the giant hooks were just too much, and he was beginning to become overwhelmed. But eventually he was able to knock it towards the ground and finish it off. He then immediately swam as fast as he could to go and see his meal. He then began to eat it. Now he wants to get revenge on the sharks that attacked him earlier. He already took out two, but one of them has become mutated. The shark horrifically grew a lot bigger and chunkier and had mutant abilities. This battle would be relatively interesting. The Megalodon immediately pinned the Mosasaurus to the ground. But the Mosasaurus, being small and a lot more agile, was able to resist and begin to bite onto the top of its fin. But the Megalodon still attacked its tail and body, and eventually it was clear who was winning. Eventually, the Mosasaurus was pushed down and nearly killed. The Mosasaurus got back up, but this time, some piranhas decided to team up with him to take out a common threat. Because the Mosasaurus actively hunted piranhas, it was one of his main food sources, it would be really easy to team up with them so that they could take on a greater threat, which I said earlier. The Megalodon began to struggle with the Mosasaurus and the other animals. They just overwhelmed them. Eventually, he was finally taken out with his mutant tongue sticking out. The Megalodon was finally dead. Meanwhile, on the surface, three Carcharodontosaurus, which are brothers, decided to go hunting for Hadrosaurs. But the Parasaurolophus were not just going to let them kill them. They would fight back, which failed as they got completely torn to shreds by the much bigger Carcharodontosaurus. The Carcharodontosaurus pinned them to the ground and began to rip them apart, tearing off their legs. But the leader had his own bone to pick with one of them before he eventually just beated it. All of this noise attracted a Brachiosaurus, and now they needed to do with a Brachiosaurus. So they immediately charged and began to bite its legs, or attempted to. They couldn't really do it that easily. One of them bit its leg before then using one of them bit onto the leg muscle before then using its foot to begin to scratch at the leg. But the Brachiosaurus was then pushed to the ground and killed. As they fed and fed, it eventually attracted some Deinonychus. The raptors immediately jumped onto the brothers. The brothers fought as hard as they could, eliminating them, but they began to become overwhelmed. The youngest one had the most amount of raptors, and eventually he was killed. Meanwhile, the two older ones began to become swarmed. Then the middle one fell, and it was only the oldest, which was the leader. The oldest one was enraged and began to tear them apart by biting a hold of them. But then they began to crawl on him, bite, but luckily he began to take them out. It was a very close battle, but eventually the raptors overwhelmed him, and the dinosaurs soonly died.